One last time, we are ready to go racing in the 2024 Ferrari Challenge Japan season. We have had fabulous races across some of Japan's foremost racing destinations, and we are now in the closing stretch, the final race, and all four championships have now been decided at this point. Yuda Uchida came in as champion in Trofeo Pirelli. Trofeo Pirelli AM has been secured by Akita. The Copa Shell category with you as we go to the calendar. Here we see some of the circuits we have been to this year too. There's Suzuka, Fuji, Sugo and Okayama. Yasutaka Shirasaki is our champion in the Copa Shell class as well now, and courtesy of qualifying this morning as well as the fastest lap point coming out after yesterday's race, Masafumi Hiwatashi is now the champion in Copa Shell AM as well. So pressure off. Everybody can roll up their sleeves and go into combat. And I think we're going to have a very exciting motor race as a result. We've got some very fast players at the front of the order. You see Motohiko Isosaki there, 5th on the grid. He will be one to watch. Cold Max, who went from 7th to 3rd at the first corner yesterday. He is on the outside of row 3 today. Let's see what he can do from P6. Just ahead of him in the grid order, or just ahead of him in the row on the left-hand side of the grid, is Akita, starting from 4th place. He is the Trofeo Pirelli AM pole sitter, the newly crowned Trofeo Pirelli AM champion. Will be starting from 4th on the grid and looking to secure a overall podium, as he did to start his season, to finish his season. But at the front of the order, we've got a very compelling top 3, all in the Trofeo Pirelli class. This man, Rin Arakawa, who had a brilliant fight yesterday with Yuda Uchida, he's right up there at the front of the order. Uchida, as you can see, is on pole position, though. Uchida managed to outpace both Yuga Furitani, who is out there in the Ferrari Japan guest car, and Rin Arakawa. So 2 young professional drivers being shown the way this morning in qualifying by Yuda Uchida, a driver who knows the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo better, I would suggest, than anybody else on this grid. Now 3 times a champion using this piece of machinery, the fabulous Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo, which of course is in its final season as the primary car for Ferrari Challenge Japan. The 296 will come on stream in the Japanese market for 2025. This car, in both its Evo and indeed its initial Ferrari 488 Challenge form, a very, very strong car for the last 8 years of Ferrari Challenge racing. And we are looking forward to welcoming the 296 on. But the 488 Challenge Evo, a car that so many drivers covet. There is the 1-minute board being shown. Uchida, Furitani at the front of the order. That's going to be a very compelling front row of the grid. I think this man's waiting to see himself on telly, but he didn't quite see it in time. Everybody feels like they're in something of a party atmosphere today, because this is the season closer. All of the championships have been decided. We know who the champions are, and we can now have one last fabulous motor race to conclude a great second season of Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Japan, where so often we had record grids averaging out at 27 cars across all races at the season. Few drivers opting out of this weekend because they were no longer in the championship hunt, and also because this is a holiday weekend in Japan. But the average across the season, 27 cars. We often welcomed over 30 onto the grids this year. A great proof of concept for national Ferrari Challenge racing and the Ferrari Challenge concept in Asia as a whole. The cars are rolling then. We are underway on the final formation lap of 2024, and it's Yudai Uchida that will lead them. And it's John Leo that we see there towards the back of the grid, along with Takashi Kurakawa tailing the field. A very compelling qualifying session this morning. It's compelling cloud cover overhead as well. It's not the best looking day we've ever seen here at Okayama. Let's hope that the weather stays in our driver's favour. Yuga Furitani working at the wheel to get the tyres up to temp. It's still quite a humid day, as it was yesterday. Deceptively warm yesterday, over 30 degrees in spite of some cloud cover. And we'll see how this race plays out from a cloud cover perspective. Hopefully those don't affect us. Yudai Uchida and Yuga Furitani on the front row of the grid. The battle from the season opener at Suzuka resumes. Rin Arakawa alongside Pirelli and pole sitter and new champion Akita. Then it's Motohiko Isasaki and Coldmax on row 3 of the grid. Row 4, Kanji Yagura alongside Yasutaka Shirasaki, the Copa Shell pole sitter, the Copa Shell champion as well. Phil Kim and Masaru Yaneda on row 5 of the grid. Row 6 of the grid, Ryuichi Kunihiro alongside Kazutaka Miura. Row 7 of the grid, Norikazu Shibata is your pole sitter there alongside Ryotaro Saito. Ryotaro Omuri in row 8 of the grid, alongside the new Copa Shell champion Hiwatashi, Katayama and Kako on row 9 of the grid. John Leo and Takashi Kurakawa rounding out the 10 rows of this grid. So an exciting race in prospect here. 30 minutes plus 1 lap. See there, we're on board with Rin Arakawa. He'll be looking for a good start. Yesterday he lost positions off the line, ended up behind Coldmax, and that meant he took a little bit longer to eventually challenge Yudai Uchida for the race win. He'll be looking for a better start this time around. Kanji Yagura will be one to watch as well from row 4 of the grid. He ended the race with damage. I think he and Motohiko Isasaki made contact off camera towards the end of the race. And Yagura will be looking for a better result this time. Will be looking to have an unimpeded run to the finish this time. He had to visit the pits at the conclusion of Saturday's race just before the checkered flag, and that dropped him well down the order. At Suzuka, the second race of the season, Yuga Furitani spent 18 minutes fighting and getting any opportunity to get past Yudai Uchida. Eventually, he found his way past the master of Ferrari Challenge Racing in the Asian region, but it took a lot of fighting. This time, he's alongside Uchida again. Uchida was quickest in qualifying this morning. Can the number 1 take the number 1 spot and make it 8 consecutive victories in this season? We're underway and we will now find out. It's Yudai Uchida with the inside line. He's earlier on the brakes though than Furitani. Furitani carrying the speed around the outside at turn 1. That's a critical move from Yuga Furitani. He gets past Yudai Uchida. We've got one there exiting stage left at the first corner. Rin Arakawa is in 3rd position. He holds on to 3rd overall ahead of Akita in 4th position. Motohiko Isasaki having a speculative look to the inside there. A good start from Phil Kim, all the way up to 6th overall from 9th on the grid, and he leads now in Copa Shell as a result of that. Furitani trying to get some heat into the tyres, as is Yudai Uchida. Uchida will be frustrated there. He was earlier on the brakes than Furitani. Furitani got it done around the outside. And now Uchida has to hope that that qualifying pace is still with him in the race. Uchida's a masterful defensive driver, but Furitani, in his appearances so far in Ferrari Challenge Japan, has had the edge on lap pace. But now we get to see whether Uchida has the ability now to close back in on the young professional driver who's racing, lest we forget, in the highest echelons of Japanese motorsport. Making a second guest appearance in Ferrari Challenge Japan. This is a huge test now for Yudai Uchida, not just to fight Furitani, but also to keep Rin Arakawa at bay. We've got some dust being kicked up through the field, but everybody, I think, has stayed on the straight and narrow. It's Furatani across the line in the lead. Uchida second, Arakawa third. Then it's Akita, Isosaki in fifth place. Phil Kim in sixth position with Shirasaki just behind him. Yasutaka Shirasaki also getting a good start. Cold Max down to eighth position. So today he's fallen through the order rather than moving upward on the first lap of the race. And there's Kurakawa at the back of the field, rounding out the 20 cars across the line. We get a look back at the start once again. And it was that point there, the braking into turn one, that proved to be so critical, as Yuga Furatani just got it stopped quicker than Yudai Uchida. Furatani then with the race lead, with Uchida second place and Arakawa in third. Yagura just in the wheel tracks at the moment, I believe, of Yaneda in the 1-2-4, and Yagura bouncing across the curbs there. Got to be careful, of course. 670 horsepower under your foot. You can't really afford to have a traction deficit from tyre to tyre on each end of the axle. One on the grass, one on the tarmac. That will quite easily loop you around, as Kazutaka Miura there looks to the inside of Kanji Yagura, the 104 car, one of the Copa Shell front runners in this season. Of course, a word as well on the Copa Dealer Championship among the dealer groups represented in this series. Rosso Scuderia, with their results yesterday, will have locked up that championship in this Ferrari Challenge Japan season. So Rosso Scuderia have done it. They have taken a title, in no small part thanks to both Shirasaki and Uchida, who represent them on this grid. Cold Max under big pressure then from Yaneda, who's looking very confident, laying down a big line of Pirelli P0 there out to the hairpin corner. Arakawa still behind Yudai Uchida. Uchida is dropping away just slightly at this stage from Yuga Furatani, and I suspect that might be in large part because he's got Arakawa right behind him. He's got to really focus on defending here, as much as he would love to try and forge a path towards the rear of Furatani. But we know for a fact that Furatani is a very quick driver. 1:33.2 is his best lap of the race so far, and that is, of course, the fastest lap of anybody. Once you give Furatani clear space and clear track, especially now that he's got a meeting in this car under his belt, of course, the Japanese Grand Prix weekend at Suzuka, he also raced this car, so he's familiar with the car at this stage. And one has to suspect that he could be unbeatable from there, so long as he keeps this consistent pace going. Uchida's still with him, though. 2.2 seconds is the gap between them at the line. All it's going to take is one subpar lap, and Uchida may be within overtaking range. But for now, he's got Arakawa to worry about. Akita leading in Pirelli Am, then in fourth overall. Shirasaki has gotten past Phil Kim as well, so Shirasaki up into sixth position overall, and the Copa Shell lead. Your Copa Shell Am leader is Ryotaro Saito in at 12th position overall. That puts him in good stead to secure the runners-up spot in the 2024 Copa Shell Am class here in Ferrari Challenge Japan. Riding on board with Arakawa. You can see him there trying to use as little steering angle as possible, of course, in every single corner, to try and scrub off as little speed as possible. Isosaki being caught up a little bit here, I think, by Shirasaki and Phil Kim. The Copa Shell class of 2024. Some of the front runners in this category really have come on leaps and bounds this season. Phil Kim being a prime example in the 199 car, a driver who hadn't raced prior to this season. And he has really upped his game. Not only has he always been quick, but he's now really developed his racecraft as well. And I suspect we're going to see a few drivers graduate up the class ranks in 2025, which really is a big compliment if you get bumped up. Uchida under huge pressure then from Arakawa. Out of Revolver Bend they go. Uchida in the firing line, but very much adept at driving through the mirrors. He's going to pick every right part of the circuit to keep Arakawa at bay, but you can see that the 69 car is very close indeed to Yudai Uchida at this phase of the race. Furatani continues to extend his race lead at the front. I think to an extent he's managing his pace. He's a good few tenths off of his fastest lap, but he's still building the gap out to 3.2 seconds this time by. Looking to the inside there, that's a battle further back in the field. I believe that's Shibata. In fact, no, that is the 125 car of Katayama, just getting past Shibata. So Katayama in the 125 car. Great to see him in the field this weekend. We're getting a look back, though. Was there a little bit of contact? No, just a clean move there, but nice to see the full execution there from Katayama, finding his way past the 181. Norikazu Shibata falling there to Hiroyuki Katayama, who debuted this year at the Suzuka season opener. Arakawa is debuting this weekend, and he's got the inside line here, surely. No, Uchida late on the brakes. I was going to say, surely Arakawa's done enough, but no. Yudai Uchida reached into his bag of tricks and slammed that brake pedal as late as he dared to stay ahead of Arakawa for now in this battle. You can see that the deficit between Furatani and Uchida is only growing. And of course, for Arakawa, he's frustrated because this would be a good opportunity to match up against someone like Furatani. Two drivers, of course, who are career-minded, both of them under 25 years old. And it would be a good way to prove yourself, to beat someone who would be one of your age peers, perhaps one of your rivals for seats in the future in identical cars. But Yudai Uchida is not allowing Arakawa to go hunting for Furatani. He wants that second position, but here comes Arakawa around the outside of Atwood Curve. Has he got the power down sufficiently? Uchida's got a nose ahead. They're going to be drag racing all the way down to the hairpin. I'm not sure who's going to get the better of this. Uchida, of course, has the inside line. You can see how even the cars are on the run down to the braking zone. But who's going to be first on the brakes? It is Arakawa. But has he got the apex? No, he has not. He does for the following corner for Revolver. And Uchida is going to have to yield on this occasion. Great racing there from Arakawa. Stayed around the outside for 2 corners in a row. Was late on the brakes there into the hairpin corner. And did a fabulous job of keeping that outside line, converting it to the inside, and getting past Yudai Uchida. Uchida isn't often outraced wheel to wheel, but on that occasion it was this late braking. Watch the nose dip on Uchida's car. It does so earlier than Arakawa. Arakawa maybe 10 meters later, 5 meters later on the brakes, but that was all it took to stay around the outside and convert that to the inside line for the following bend. Great racing from both parties, respectful racing from both parties. And Uchida has already fallen off the back of Arakawa. gap actually was at 3 seconds by the time they crossed the line. I wonder if Uchida may have made a slight error towards the end of the lap. Are we getting a replay of that exact thing? Yes, we are. Just trying to carry speed through the last corner and ended up going rally crossing. Well, if Furatani hasn't seen it in the rear view mirrors, I'm sure someone's going to tell him Arakawa is now coming. And look at that, a change for 4th position. Shirasaki has got past Isosaki. And Phil Kim is still in 6th place. And they've all bumped up a position because Akita is in the pits. We see Akita pulling up now into the pit lane. He was running in the lead of the Pirelli Am class, and he's now limping the car back to pit lane. So Akita, the new champion in Trofeo Pirelli Am, is unfortunately not going to end his season on a high. Looks like they're changing a tyre, so perhaps there was a puncture. Furatani, Arakawa and Uchida well clear at the front of the order, and then it is the ever impressive driver of the 109, Yasutaka Shirasaki, the new Copa Shell champion, running in 4th place ahead of all of the Trofeo Pirelli runners. Meanwhile, Coldmax running in 7th place now, obviously upgraded 1 position courtesy of Akita's misfortune. Still with Masaru Yaneda just behind him. Here comes Akita back out onto the circuit with a fresh tyre on the car, but he's very kindly waiting for all of his adversaries to go by. Of course, he will be a lap down on them now, so no merit to firing yourself back out into the field. Shirasaki leading in Copa Shell, and he's just ahead of the new Trofeo Pirelli Am leader, Motohiko Isosaki. Isosaki, who has already won a race this season in Trofeo Pirelli Am and sits 4th in the championship. I don't think he will improve up the championship order with today's result. However, Kanji Agura, by my maths, as it stands, finishing behind Coldmax, and especially after yesterday's misfortune, I think Coldmax could be on for the runners-up spot, the vice-champion spot in Trofeo Pirelli Am. Coldmax on course for that accolade as it stands. Here's Shirasaki, again running 4th overall in the most recent events in this Ferrari Challenge Japan season. More often than not, we've seen Shirasaki in the top 5. He was very impressive in Sugo. He was very impressive at Suzuka. And I think we've seen Shirasaki take another step forward this season. He debuted within Ferrari Challenge last year. Came 2nd in Copa Shell last year. And there was a lot of improvement across that season. And I think we've seen even more improvement this year. And Shirasaki has taken a win at all of our destinations this season. And that record being extended at the moment. And Yudai Uchida, unfortunately, ends his season in the gravel. 7 victories this year in Ferrari Challenge Japan, but unfortunately he's not going to make it 8. He's found himself in the gravel trap. Was pressing on, trying to keep with Arakawa. And the safety car is deployed with 14 minutes of the race left to go. We have a safety car, and that is going to make things very interesting indeed between Furatani and Arakawa. The 2 Trofeo Pirelli combatants that remain, the 2 young professional hot shoes, are going to be put back together on the circuit. And that is going to make the run to the final checkered flag of the year must-watch viewing. Disappointed to see Uchida end his season in this manner, but he can still take a lot away from this season. Once again, a champion in Ferrari Challenge Japan. He's yet to be defeated in a championship battle in Ferrari Challenge Japan. Carried with him the momentum that he had built in his early years of Ferrari Challenge racing in the Asia Pacific Series, and has wonderfully carried it over to Japan. Phil Kim, of course, will get the opportunity to close back in on Isosaki and Shirasaki as well. And Shirasaki on course for an overall podium at the moment, but I suspect that he, Motohiko Isozaki, Phil Kim, Cold Max, Masaru Yaneda, Kanji Agura, they are all going to be together on the circuit when this race resumes, and I suspect it's going to be quite the battle. The circumstances have meant that an overall podium is up for grabs among our series regulars. Furutani and Arakawa, of course, both here on somewhat of a guest basis. Furutani for the second time this year, Arakawa for the first time this year. Very similar drivers on paper, both 24 years of age. Of course, Furutani has had impressive runs in various championships, was runner-up in the 2020 Formula Regional Japan. Now, Kanji Agura and Kazutaki Miura have had a off-track moment there under safety car. I wonder if the field was just bunching up and they had to take evasive action. Now, Yuda Uchida, there was some suspension damage as well. So definitely no chance of a rejoin for him, unfortunately. The last 2 years for Yuga Furutani, 2022 and 2023, he was running in Super Formula Lights, scored 8 podiums there. Of course, Rin Arakawa is currently running in Super Formula Lights, and both of them have experience in Japan's biggest series, the Super GT Championship as well. It's great to see them here in Ferrari Challenge Japan, proving yet further that Ferrari Challenge can be a development ground just as much as it is a opportunity for new racing drivers to drive incredible cars. Looks like Yuda Uchida working on something there, but they will soon get the car craned and away. But we have seen Ferrari Challenge Japan, Ferrari Challenge globally, I should say, being utilised as a stepping stone for more and more careers. 2 drivers who are currently representing Ferrari in major global championships, doing a very good job. Of course, Nicholas Nielsen, the newest Le Mans 24 Hours winner, taking the win in a Ferrari 499P back in June. Tom Fleming, who's one of the newest stars in European GT3 competition in the World Challenge Series, he is doing an incredible job with AF Corsa in the Ferrari 296 GT3. He is last year's Ferrari Challenge World Champion, of course, a plaudit that he gained at last year's Finale Mondiale event. Dorian Pan, another great example too. We're seeing more and more career-minded drivers coming into Ferrari Challenge. And it's really interesting to see people like Yuda Uchida, who is an amateur racer. He makes his living elsewhere and then decides to come racing, but he is so quick and has proven to be quite the measuring stick for the likes of Furitani and Arakawa. Your racecraft needs to be impeccable to get around Yudai Uchida. And while his season has ended on something of a low, he can take away a lot of positives from this 2024 season. Of course, he is the champion. I believe he might be heading to Finale Mondiale in October in Imola. And so he'll have one last opportunity to make some moves before the end of the year. That event going on from the 16th till the 20th of October, and it's one you do not want to miss. So then, the safety car has driven away from our pack of cars. Furitani keeping everyone behind him for now. The safety car will have exited there at the exit road just after Revolver Corner, but I believe right up until the start-finish line, it's Furitani who has control over the pack's pace. And he will be so keen to keep this man, Arakawa, behind him. Rin Arakawa, who started the race in third place, was runner-up yesterday. He wants to go one better in the final race of the season. It's 6 minutes and 45 seconds left to go as the pin is pulled. And Furitani sets off once again. You saw him on the limit of traction there, going through the penultimate corner, wanting to get every advantage he can going onto the main straight. And this is going to be a duel between Furitani and Arakawa, and equally, Shirasaki, I suspect, will have some pressure from behind, although he's gotten a good start over Motohiko Isosaki there. As we return to racing action, we should have something in the region of 4 laps to go. Of course, once the clock hits 0 in this race, we do have one more lap to go. So the clock hitting 0 means it's the penultimate lap that we are on in that moment. Through the Atwood curve they go for the first time back under green flag conditions. The 127 car there of Saito leading the way in Copa Shell Am. Got a brief look at him. Still ahead of Shibata by the looks of it. So that's the Copa Shell Am battle. Cold Max fending off Yaneda. Yaneda running third in Copa Shell. Cold Max running second in Trofeo Pirelli Am at the moment. Kanji Agura, the third of the Trofeo Pirelli Am drivers, sitting just behind them. Great to see the 124 of Yaneda in a strong position in this race. Started from 10th on the grid, so made some forward progress so far in this race. Running in at P7. And really looks like he's threatening the back of Cold Max, but that has been the case for a lot of this race so far. Furitani continues on in the lead then. 1.3 seconds clear of Arakawa as they return to green flag. Straight back into the 133s. You see there his fastest lap of the race, a 133.2. His previous rotation of the circuit, a 133.765. So he was immediately back on his pace there. Even though the tyres had had a chance to just cool slightly. 1.3 seconds is a nice little cushion for Furitani. He can just glance in the mirror without having to think too hard about whether he needs to position the car to avoid an overtake. Arakawa well out of overtaking range. And the gap by fractions of a second is extending. He was a few hundredths quicker than Arakawa through both the first and second sector. So Furitani, for now, with 3 minutes and 35 seconds left to go, looks like he's in control. But there's still time for Arakawa to mount a challenge before the end of this race. Shirasaki running third place. He's 1.1 seconds ahead of Isosaki as it stands. In fact, 1.6 seconds now ahead of Isosaki. Phil Kim in fifth place, also not too far away, but I think this is where the main battle is going to be for the remainder of this race, because Cold Max is under pressure from Masaru Yaneda. Again, they run in separate classes, but they want those overall positions, and Cold Max is going to have to work hard to retain this sixth position. Of course, he wants to finish ahead of Kanji Agura to ensure that he finishes runner-up in the Trofeo Pirelli AM class as well. Cold Max was 5 points off of Kanji Agura in the championship coming into this weekend. He thoroughly outscored him yesterday, and finishing ahead in the class points once again in today's race would secure second in Trofeo Pirelli AM for Cold Max. Masaru Yaneda not too bothered though about the championship implications of other people. He just wants to have a good race, and he certainly is at the moment. Ryotaro Saito getting quite loose out of the previous corner as well. He's looking to try and get into the overall top 10. Running 11th and first among the Copa Shell AM drivers right now. He's on course to secure the runners-up spot in the championship in Copa Shell AM quite comfortably, behind champion Masafumi Hiwatashi. Cold Max on the brakes into turn 2. Yaneda just watching for now, but he's going to do as much defending as attacking. You saw there Yagura getting feisty, kicking up some grass under braking, but still managing to get the car stopped for Atwood. Furitani still with Arakawa nearby. The gap is 1.6 seconds. You can see it's gone up fractionally across the last couple of laps, but actually this time, at least in the middle sector, Arakawa found a 10th. I'm not sure he's going to find 1.5 seconds to close in on Furitani before the end of this race. Furitani, who claimed 2 race wins in front of tens of thousands of people at the Japanese Grand Prix in the first weekend of Ferrari Challenge Japan action for 2024. He will actually secure second in the Trofeo Pirelli Championship with a win in this race. Cold Max very much looking like the cork in the bottle, but will Yaneda or indeed Yagura get close enough to try and make a move? This battle for 6th place is looking very compelling. Onto the brakes once again at the Atwood bend. Yaneda getting a good run out of the corner there. Slightly wider at the apex, but that gave him a nice run over the crest of the hill. Yagura not too far behind either. None of them close enough for a move. Yagura having a little speculative look to the inside, but has the same moment of realization that I did, that he was indeed too far back. The clock has hit 0, so we are on the penultimate lap of the race now. This time by, we begin the final lap of the race. Furitani with just one more lap between himself and a 3rd victory of the season in Ferrari Challenge. Trofeo Pirelli Japan. You can continues to hold the advantage, extends it slightly to 1.7 seconds. The final lap begins now. Cold Max under scrutiny still from Yaneda, but Yaneda's yet to get close enough to really make a move. He gets a good run, though, out of the final corner. The question is, can Yaneda find a way through? It's the final lap of the season. If there's any time for the gloves to come off on Masaru Yaneda, it's now. But he's a respectful driver. He's not going to make a move that he can't make. Here comes Yagura, though. That's the other factor in this. Kanji Yagura and indeed Kazutaka Miura behind him. They drive over the crest of the hill. And Cold Max leading a train of, what, 8, 9 cars? He's doing so expertly here. Heading towards what will be a Trofeo Pirelli AM Vice Championship status. But Yuga Furatani will end up being second in the points in this year's Ferrari Challenge Japan Trofeo Pirelli. But moreover, he has claimed his third victory of this season with a fabulous drive at Okayama, making up for the non-finish yesterday with a win today ahead of Arakawa. And Shirasaki will make a visit to the overall podium, the Copa Shell champion for 2024 already, and he can add overall podium finisher to his list of accolades for the season. He finishes ahead of Motohiko Isozaki. Phil Kim has crossed the line 5th overall, and across the line for second in Pirelli AM and a hard-fought 6th overall is Cold Max. Umuri is going to be next across the line. And then just behind him will be Hiwatashi. And Hiwatashi, the Copa Shell champion, Copa Shell AM champion for 2024. All of our championships have already been decided, of course. Uchida, the Trofeo Pirelli champion. Akita will secure the Trofeo Pirelli AM title this year. Has already done so. Copa Shell going to Shirasaki. And Hiwatashi has secured the Pirelli the Copa Shell AM title. But Furatani is our final winner of the season, securing his third win of 2024 from 4 appearances in races. A very good showing from Furatani. Once again, Arakawa did well there and matched pace, but couldn't get close enough for a move on track. Shirasaki, with that 3rd overall, winning in Copa Shell, and Pirelli AM won by Motohiko Isozaki. 4th overall for the experienced racer. Phil Kim, the South Korean racer, rounding out our top 5 as well. And after this final race, I'm sure the celebrations are going to be excellent, not just on the podium, but this evening in the paddock as well. A fabulous season of Ferrari Challenge racing here in Japan. Of course, the season's still very much ongoing, broadly speaking, across the world in Ferrari Challenge. All roads lead to Finale Mondiali. I wonder what someone like Yuga Furatani would do at that event. I don't know if we're going to get the chance to find out, but wouldn't it be compelling? Yuga Furatani claims yet another win. As our drivers pull up to Parc Fermé for the final time this season. I reiterate, despite the non-finish today, Yudai Uchida quite comfortably the Trofeo Pirelli champion this year. Some of the best racing we saw all season was Uchida going up against young pros like this man, Yuga Furutani. And it's great to see Furutani on the top step once again. He was very impressed by the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo in Suzuka, the season opening weekend. Kanji Yagura. Is that Kanji? I think it could be. In fact, no, that's Shirasaki, my apologies. Shirasaki celebrating his podium as well as his win in Copa Shell. Kanji Yagura pulling up to a third place spot. Of course, he wasn't third in today's race, but I think they're just trying to find room for everybody at this stage. It was Shirasaki who took third overall. And a great display of driving it was from the driver of the blue and white car. Shirasaki, who races, of course, for the Copa Dealer champions, Rosso Scuderia. Motohiko Isasaki, his year is anything but over, of course. He'll be at Finale Mondiale. You can practically guarantee that. And, of course, he'll be racing again in Europe before the end of the season in his 296 that he has been running on the other side of the world. Yagura cooling down after his race. He had a good time. Of course, he missed out on a race at Suzuka 2, the second trip to Suzuka. He had a bit of a clash with with the cavalcade at Venice, but Ryotaro Saito celebrating his Copa Shell Am victory with style there. That will also secure him the runner-up spot in the championship in Copa Shell Am, and he looks really delighted with that. That's great to see. This means a lot to these drivers. It's often the pursuit of a dream for the drivers that come into Copa Shell Am. The opportunity to race a Ferrari, something that perhaps they could only ever dream of as a child. And then in adulthood, their career has allowed them to do that. And so these wins are often quite special. And great respect, as always, down in the paddock among everyone. And some debrief, as always, as well. That's always the fun in the cool-down room, is watching the gesticulation, finding out who did what. You see a lot of these drivers with drinking apparatus and things of that nature because it is a warm weekend here. Even with that cloud cover earlier on, we're still up over 30 degrees this weekend at Okayama. We get a look back at the race highlights then, and it was a good start from pole position from Yudai Uchida, but Yuga Furutani was committed on the brakes into the first corner, went around the outside into an early lead that he would ultimately hold for the duration. Some battling further back in the field in the early stages, as you would expect. Rin Arakawa with some early pressure from Akita, who was leading at this stage, at least, in Trofeo Pirelli Am. Arakawa, as with yesterday, faced with the task of getting past Yudai Uchida for second overall, and this time he managed to do it later on the brakes around the outside at the hairpin, managed to get the inside for Revolver Corner and moved up to second overall. Akita, unfortunately, into the pits for a tyre change. Yudai Uchida in the gravel, that triggered a safety car period. He went back to green flag racing with Arakawa right there with Yuga Furutani, but Furutani did enough to keep those few car lengths in his favour and drive to a victory While that was going on further behind them, Cold Max was under all sorts of pressure from the likes of Masaru Yaneda and Kanji Ogura, but Cold Max held on to 6th overall and will claim the vice championship status in Trofeo Pirelli AM as well. But Yuga Furatani crossed the line to win his 3rd race of the season. A fabulous showing from the driver of the number 2. And yet more proof that Furatani can get in anything and win races. A great race then for everybody. It was Furatani that claimed the win ahead of Arakawa, Shirasaki, Isosaki and Phil Kim. Cold Max in 6th place, Masaru Yaneda 7th, Kanji Ogura 8th place, Kazutaka Miura in 9th, Ryuichi Kunihiro in 10th ahead of Kopashel Am winner Ryutaro Saito, Shibata Omuri, Hiwatashi, Katayama, Kato, Leo, Kurakawa, Akita and Uchida, bringing us down to 20th place. Shirasaki winning Kopashel, Isosaki winning in Trofeo Pirelli AM. And your winner, of course, in Trofeo Pirelli was Yuga Furatani, your overall winner as well. The cool-down room is where some of these drivers get the chance to take a pew. We will hopefully see at least one podium before we have to wrap up today's broadcast. But for now, everybody just taking in the opportunity to rehydrate and debrief ahead of the race. Motohiko Isosaki. Always enthusiastic, a great bubbly character in a racing paddock. Had a great conversation with him towards the start of the year. He was testing in Portimao, telling me about the ups and downs of the Portimao track, the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve. I think everybody will be reflecting on the ups and downs of a fabulous sophomore season of Ferrari Challenge Japan. It's been an overwhelming success, this concept, in just its 2nd season. Often attracting grids north of 30 cars. Attracting young professionals through the Ferrari Japan Guest Car. And indeed, a mix of regulars from Ferrari Challenge and newcomers to the category. And that will only continue, of course, in 2025 as we welcome a new car onto these shores, the wonderful Ferrari 296 Challenge. I suspect we'll see more of this national series concept. It's working so well in Japan, it's doing good things in the UK as well. To the top step of the podium then comes Yuga Furatani. He stands with Rin Arakawa. And will receive his trophy, 2nd place trophy, going to Arakawa, who had a very good race. Again, a little bit less experience in the car than Yuga Furatani, but you wouldn't have expected it based on his performance. And Furatani, for the 3rd time this season, stands on the top step in Ferrari Challenge Japan, and I really hope we get to see more of this young man in future, because he is very entertaining to watch at the wheel. As the presentations continue, they will pause for, I believe, the Japanese national anthem. Momentarily, unfortunately, we do have to leave this podium scene, but great to see Furatani holding his trophies aloft and celebrating. They pose for the pictures together. Yudai Uchida, a shame he couldn't stand on the podium in his final race of a brilliant championship-winning season. But again, after the disappointment of today has somewhat waned, I'm sure he will be very happy with his performances this year. We have crowned all of our champions. Yudai Uchida in Trofeo Pirelli. Pirelli Am Akita is your champion. Yasutaka Shirasaki winning the Copa Shell Championship. And Masafumi Hiwatashi securing the title in Copa Shell Am. And as the champagne sprays over for one last time this season, we reflect upon a year that has been so exciting to watch. We've seen so much growth in this series, so many newcomers celebrating their efforts. And great to see, as always, the drivers that aren't on the podium gathering as well to watch their colleagues, their rivals, and take in the celebrations. The community spirit of Ferrari Challenge is evident to see. We are going to get to see the next grid out there for the podiums, which is amazing. This is Trofeo Pirelli Am coming up. Kanji Agura and Cold Max onto the podium. Cold Max just briefly walking across the top step. Maybe that's a hint. And Motohiko Isosaki claiming the win in his final Ferrari Challenge Japan race of the season. Isosaki, a bubbly character. And always a very grateful winner as well. He will be delighted, beaming from ear to ear all night long, I'm sure. Isosaki will be fourth in the Pirelli Am Championship. Cold Max, as I alluded to, will have taken second place away from Kanji Agura over the course of this weekend. But Akita, who unfortunately had to pop into pit lane, of course, he still wins the Trofeo Pirelli Am title, but it's Motohiko Isosaki that claims the final Pirelli trophy and indeed the final P1 trophy of the season in Pirelli Am. They pose for the pictures, and I think they'll get some champagne in as well. Always fun to see them really start to unwind. I think in many ways that pop of the champagne, that pop of the cork, is kind of the point where you start to finally relax after an intense motor race. And it's also the signal that the festivities can begin after one last race, of course, that being the race to actually get the bottles open. And they all succeed at doing so. Oh, Motohiko's going to get a bit of a shower. Of course, it's Cold Max that gives the cold shower. Isosaki, of course, will be training his attentions now onto the remainder of his European season. Incidentally, if you've enjoyed today's racing and you want to see more Ferrari Challenge action, they're racing in Sonoma this evening. Of course, with Ferrari Challenge North America, that will be well worth a watch as well, as they get to towards the apex of their season. Still a couple of rounds to go for the North American Championship. We are going to get the Copa Shell podium up next. Out onto the podium already has gone Masaru Yaneda. There's Phil Kim ending his season with a great performance, and the new champion, oh goodness me, with a slight stumble, Yasutaka Shirasaki to the top step of the podium. That's the only fumble he's made all year long. He has been exemplary at the wheel of the 109. He ends his season, of course, with an overall podium, finishing third overall and winning in the Copa Shell class. A deserving champion if ever there was one this season in Copa Shell. Third place trophy going to Yoneda, who of course had that brilliant battle towards the end of the race, trying to find a way past Max. Phil Kim taking the second place position, rounding out a very strong first season of racing for him. I'm expecting great things from Phil Kim in 2025. And as for Shirasaki, well, I expect a promotion from Copa Shell. Second last year, making great progress in his initial season of racing. His sophomore season of racing has seen him clinch the title and even fight against the Trofeo Pirelli Am drivers and often win. So I expect that we'll see him challenging further up the ranks in 2025. Of course, it'll be interesting to see how everyone adapts to the 296 in next year's Ferrari Challenge Japan as well. One last round of pictures for the Copa Shell drivers. They pose, or they get ready, I should say, for the champagne shower. As both champion and race winner, I have to imagine that Yasutaka Shirasaki is going to get the brunt of this. Yes, indeed, and he can't even open his bottle. He hasn't got any armory to fight back with. Yasutaka Shirasaki getting his chance now to exact a little revenge. I think that went in his eyes a little bit. But he will celebrate long into the night. A champion in Ferrari Challenge Japan. And, of course, he'll also be celebrating, along with Yudai Uchida, the Rosso Scuderia dealership's win in Coppa Dealer as well, the Effective Teams Championship of Ferrari Challenge Japan. Both of them representing the Rosso Scuderia dealership. I believe we are going to see Copa Shell Am as well. We're going to get all 4 podiums. And there is one of the celebrations of the season there. With full gusto, Umuri comes up onto the podium. Shibata coming up to the second step of the podium. But your winner, Ryotaro Saito, claiming second in the championship behind Hiratashi, climbing to the top step in today's race. Love to see Ryotaro Umuri celebrating his initial season in racing as well. He was very happy to be up there on the podium. He receives his third place trophy, and you can see the delight for him. Will be in the top 5 in the Copa Shell Am Championship as well. Came in to this race 5th in the championship, and that 5th place he will have retained this weekend. Catch there from Ryotaro Saito. And all 3 drivers hold their trophies aloft in what is the final ceremony of the year in Ferrari Challenge Japan. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of the newcomers from this year's Copa Shell Am back again in 2025 to take on the new challenge of the Ferrari 296. And also, of course, to continue where they left off, the friendly rivalries that they have built so far this season will continue on into 2025. The relationships that have been built in the paddock, the friendships that have been built in this paddock will only continue over the winter. And we'll all be back together again at the start of the 2025 season. One last spray of champagne for our Copa Shell Am runners. And that marks the conclusion of the 2024 Ferrari Challenge Japan. A huge congratulations again to all 4 of our new champions, as well as Rosso Scuderia, the Coppa Dealer champions for 2024. It's been a stellar season of Ferrari Challenge Japan. We hope we'll see you again in 2025 when we welcome the 296 into the Asian region. It's been a great year. Thank you so much for joining us.